The Titan Fitness rack-mounted adjustable pull-up bar is a simple but effective tool to add a ton of versatility to your rack for an extremely reasonable price. This pull-up bar is unique in the fact it allows you to adjust the handles to whatever side-to-side width and spacing you want, and also allows you to adjust the angles of each handle itself. These two features, coupled with the ability to use this on pretty much any 42-inch width rack, make this arguably one of the best bang for buck rack attachments you can get. And oh, did I mention you can usually get it for around $100? Let's check it out. Hey guys, this is Michael with the Jungle Gym Reviews. Today we're reviewing a piece I've had in my shopping cart about 5 times over the last couple years. This is the Titan Fitness adjustable handle rack-mounted pull-up bar. If you've seen one of my most recent videos on what I consider my ultimate compact 3x3 rack that I own, then you will know myself, like many other home gym owners, are constantly looking for ways to improve on and add more versatility to our existing spaces and equipment. This pull-up bar from Titan Fitness does just that. I feel like it's a really slept-on option, and I haven't seen a whole lot of reviews or online resources talking about this attachment. So I'm going to talk about how it works, the compatibility, and more, and you can decide if that's something you want in your home gym. Before I get into the rest of the video, if you could quickly hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, it will help us continue to grow the channel and make sure you get notified when we post our weekly reviews throughout the rest of 2025. Also, if you're interested in purchasing this pull-up bar after the review, please check out the affiliate link in the description below. In that 3x3 rack I mentioned and my prior racks over the years, I've always had and always enjoyed using the standard 1.25-inch diameter pull-up bar. For multi-grip pull-ups, I've always used one of my functional trainers or used different Kensui grip handles, like either their neutral grip or angled grip version. The Kensui grips work just fine, but I feel like a fixed, solid grip just feels a lot better in my hands and personally gives me a much better mind-muscle connection for that movement. Like I mentioned, I've toured with the idea of getting different pull-up bars, but a traditional multi-grip pull-up bar won't fit on my rack due to my other attachments, coupled with the fact that I have honestly just bigger priority needs for the gym than a pull-up bar usually. So I've seen this Titan one on their website over the last year or two, and I kept debating, should I get it, should I not? Fast forward a couple months ago, I was traveling at a gym. They had one of those cable crossovers with the multi-grip integrated pull-up bar, got some great sets of angled reverse grip chin-ups in, and I knew that was a sign that I had to try this Titan Grip adjustable pull-up bar. So again, the main feature or features on this bar is that you can quickly change the angles of the handles, but also adjust them pretty much to any side-to-side spacing that you want. How it works is that the handles are mounted on these plastic lined brackets, and they're able to freely slide left to right on this square tubing. So if you measure from the base of the handles where it connects to the square tubing, you can change the difference from, at the narrowest, about 4 inches apart, and at the widest, about 27 inches apart. Again, just remember this distance is not necessarily how close or far the handles themselves are because they're adjustable depending on if you do an outer or inner or neutral or like a flat grip. In reality, this narrowest you can really get is side by side here in the middle, your knuckles touching together, or at the widest you can use the full length, tilt these out, and your handles are essentially about 42 inches wide as your rack. So any angle in between is what you can set it to till your heart's content. Speaking to the angle adjustment, you have the option to change it in 45-degree increments. Titan says there's technically 8 different angles, which for 360 degrees, if it increments in 45 degrees, makes sense. However, from a practical standpoint, you probably won't use these in a 360-degree fashion. Instead, you're just going to be using it facing one direction, like I have it here on my rack, meaning there's basically 4 angle or grip options: normal straight overhand, reverse grip angled, neutral, and overhand angled grip. The handles themselves are very lightly and very passively knurled, so it does have a little more grip than the standard no knurl on a typical pull-up bar, and really just provides just a little bit of texture, but it's not anything to quite write home about. I would like to see a little more knurling depth like my Mikolo Falcon functional trainer has, or preferably even a more durable rubber coating that really will give it that commercial-like feel. The handle diameter itself is 25 millimeters, and it feels very narrow in your hands, especially compared to most traditional barbells or dumbbells that range anywhere from 28 millimeters to 35 millimeter range. However, for most people, this narrow diameter makes it really easy to grip, especially for pulling movements. If you want, however, to slide over something like fat grips or some similar handle grip I've done those before with fat grips I have here, and it works great for a handful of sets. Real quick, I did want to mention the weight capacity is listed for this entire pull-up bar is 440 pounds, so it should work for most people in most situations, even with added weight if you're doing weighted 45, 90, 135 if you're super strong, so it's not something to be concerned about. The price of this bar is one of the best parts about this piece, and I don't think I've ever seen it not on sale from Titan, but it's currently listed at that $119 sale price. That price, by the way, is cheaper than almost any multi-grip rack-mounted pull-up bar that I've seen, and this one allows more grip options and takes up less overall space on your rack. As far as where to mount it, you can mount it both to the uprights or to the cross members, so vertically or horizontally. Depending on which orientation you choose, you may have to unscrew these 4 bolts on the frame in order to basically rotate these plastic sliders 90 degrees to match the horizontal or vertical rack-mounted orientation you have, but it takes less than 5 minutes. I did also want to mention it takes up the same typical top to bottom hole spacing, so the same real estate as a typical pull-up bar. Speaking to the rack compatibility, since it's a Titan product by default, it's made to fit all of Titan's 42-inch racks. This includes the X2 2x2 5/8 rack, their T3 2x3 5/8 rack, their X3 3x3 5/8 rack, and the big boy Titan series 3x3 1-inch hole, which is what I have here in my gym. For cross-brand compatibility, if you have a metric rack that's 42 inches wide and the same upright dimensions and hole sizes, it should work plug and play. If you're unsure, feel free to drop a comment here below, or just double check your rack against the Titan attachment compatibility by taking a look at the Power Rack compatibility list from 2Rep Cave that I'll link in the description below. Again, make sure you have a metric rack like Wrap or Titan, which are cross-compatible, but if you want to use something like Rogue, which uses an Imperial upright size, and hole spacing, if you try to mount this in an Imperial rack, one of these 2 holes is not going to line up natively, so just make sure you try that on your own risk. Also, if you do have a wider rack than this 42 inches, that is metric, you can still mount this pull-up bar, and I would just recommend adding some washers between where the pull-up bar ends and the rack starts. Anything wider than 43 inches will require longer bolts than they include with this kit. For racks narrower than 42 inches, in theory you can make this work, but you'd have to drill some holes and really get creative with cutting, drilling, all this kind of modifications of the actual tubing itself. Now this pull-up bar sounds pretty cool, very practical, space-saving, affordable, etc. But there's just 2 main things I would consider before you go about purchasing this. The first thing is that it technically lowers the height of where your hands or where you're pulling from by about 2 inches, meaning even if you mount it at that top handle, because of how the handles sit a little bit lower, you're actually gripping it about 2 inches lower than where a typical fixed pull-up bar would be if you mounted it. Second, some people might be wondering how you stop it from sliding left to right while you're using it without any sort of real side-to-side locking mechanism. And I'm here to tell you it doesn't move whatsoever for typical pull-ups. Now, if you do CrossFit, calisthenics, or want to do some momentum-based pull-up type things, you'll probably generate enough vertical or lateral force for the handles to maybe slide slightly while in use. But in typical use for standard pull-ups, chin-ups, etc., even with bands, the friction and downward force of you just pulling on the handles does not allow them to move side to side, and they feel 100% solid. Also, since I mentioned you can use bands, you can use bands on here just fine. Just tie them here to the square crossmember tubing rather than the handles is probably my recommendation. So overall, this rack-mounted pull-up bar is priced really well. It's obviously very effective. It is a pull-up bar that simply just works and allows you to adjust to find a comfortable angle and a comfortable width that fits you specifically as a human with your own biomechanics, training preferences. So what more could you ask for in a $120 product? If I really wanted to nitpick, I can think of a handful of improvements that would be even more universal rack compatibility, which again, to be honest, the fact it works on 2x2 and 3x3 and 2x3 racks with 5/8 or 1-inch holes is a ton of compatibility already. But they could pretty easily include a couple more things on here that would make it fit a 41-inch rack if some of this tubing wasn't as wide and had more bolt holes, or same thing on the exterior to make it had more bolt holes to fit a 43-inch rack natively. Again, I get why they don't want to cater to other manufacturers or other racks outside of themselves, but maybe a third party will come out with something similar which has the same sort of adjustments and maybe is a little more cross-compatible. Who knows? Piggybacking on the idea for a third party to make this available to fit different widths, the only other thing I would want to incorporate is more handle angles. Although with the mechanical design of this, the locking mechanism would definitely make all of this require a redesign, so I can't really fault Titan here. So guys, that's it for this review of the Titan Fitness adjustable handle rack mounted pull-up bar. As always, if you have any questions, please comment down below. I'll be happy to answer or at least try. Thank you for tuning into the Jungle Gym Reviews. We'll see you next time. Take it easy. Peace.